Hi everyone, and welcome to the third instalment in our Marketing for a Cookieless Future series. So my name's Kaya, I'm from Footprint Digital, and I'm joined here today by eFocus's Kate Barrett, and we are going to be talking about some use cases from an email, SEO and PPC perspective to round off our series on exploring marketing for a cookieless future and all that entails. So just to introduce myself, my name is Kay Heaton and I'm a Partnership Development Manager at Footprint Digital. I look after our tech agency and educational partnerships, and Footprint Digital is a digital marketing agency based up in Colchester and London, looking at SEO, PPC and CRO, conversion rate optimization, and all of the different ways that we can make the most of data to help our clients make more money online.
And I'm Kate Barrett. I'm the founder and CEO of eFocus Marketing, and we're a specialist email marketing agency helping brands just like yourselves to use the channel more intelligently. And it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you today, Kaya, and getting all this information together and seeing how we can connect the channels that each of our agencies work on to really create that combined connection and boost the power of the campaigns that everyone has got.
I think boosting the power of these campaigns is going to be a bit of a theme today, isn't it? And the main theme for today is going to be, of course, changes that are afoot in the world of cookies. I think a bit of context, a bit of background setting is that, of course, we know that the cookie will crumble, but not quite yet. And this reality has really been underlined in sort of recent times when Google has announced the delay of its self-imposed deadline for getting rid of third-party cookies for Chrome, which is, of course, the world's most popular browser. We're seeing changes happening, but I think the prevailing message is that there's no need to panic, because this change is actually opening space for innovation and for new ways of making the most of that data. So, of course, as we all know, advertisers rely on third-party cookies to track user behavior across the web, serve up targeted ads, which we spend day in, day out talking about, don't we, Kate? But these changes that are happening later this year, of course, will make it harder to follow a customer's digital experience and get a full picture of what they're doing online. But actually, we're already seeing all sorts of different ways of making the most of the data that we will continue to have available to us come up. And these changes are nothing new. You know, Safari and Firefox have blocked third-party cookies since 2013. And what we're seeing from Google is that these delays are leaving the time for them to really build the infrastructure to be able to make sure that we are making the most of the data in the most privacy-centric way possible for our clients. So, on to what we can do with that data that we do have access to. So today we're going to be covering 3 different use cases around the ways to kind of use and cross-pollinate the data and the ways that we're sort of thinking about it. So we're going to be looking at different ways to use email segmentation to understand audience demographics. We're going to look at how that email segmentation data and other forms of data can be reused in content online, on your websites, thinking about that from both an SEO perspective, but also off-page PPC. How can you be informing the decisions that you're making with that marketing spend, with that budget, making the most of the information that you have access to? Email can be used as a source for local SEO, which we're going to have a talk about further into this session. And really what all of this comes down to, and I think a bit of a theme that we'll be coming back to today throughout our time with you, is that a lot of these forms of marketing and forms of communicating with our audiences are brilliant testing grounds. What content is performing well in your emails? Could you repurpose that for your paid advertising? What content forms are doing really well in your paid ads? Are videos performing extremely well? How can you think about that in your wider strategy? But the prevailing message here, and one that we potentially say too much at Footprint, is that it's test and measure always and forever. We don't want to be making decisions based on gut feeling, based on opinion. We want to be making informed, very well-informed, data-led decisions that can, you know, reassure us that we are making the best possible decisions with the budget that we have access to. And of course, it's all about consumers. And what do consumers want? They want honesty. 80% of consumers have expressed concern about online privacy. We are, of course, in an age where privacy is the central point, and that is the point of all of this. We're talking about being able to balance privacy and personalization. How can we have these extremely well-informed sort of user journeys that we're going to be contributing to from a digital marketing perspective, while keeping the user privacy as a central point, getting explicit consent, and increasing that trust and engagement to ensure that the data we collect is safe. Transparency, you know, the best way to make sure everyone knows and is happy with the data and how it's being collected and how you're using it as a business is transparency, honesty, ensuring that you offer controls beyond basic permissions, easy opt-out sharing, making it useful. And useful content and using data usefully is, of course, something extremely important in website content too. Google's helpful data, helpful content updates are all around making sure that the experiences that we have online are as useful as possible. And 74% of consumers considered it important to have a relationship with a brand. So how can we use that in our wider strategy to ensure that we are building that trust from as much of a transparent and privacy-centric way as possible?
And definitely post GDPR, where people are giving you that permission to use their zero and first party data. And we've spoken about that in our previous webinar, Kaya. You've got to be making sure that you are making the most of it and using it in a way that is going to be helpful to your audience. If you're not using that data and they've given you permission, you're letting them down. So it's really important to think about the data you're collecting and how you can use it to segment, personalize, and automate campaigns across your different channels, and where you can create that omni-channel connection. Like Kaya was talking about at the beginning, it's connecting the messages across those different touch points, but it's also learning from each of them as to what works and what doesn't, because it's your same audience across these channels. There is no separation here. So when we think about factors, particularly that we can use to personalize email content, because that's certainly a channel where you can get hyper personalized with what you're doing, as long as you have the data in place, we're looking at some core elements. So the first that we're going to be looking at is those past website interactions. So here with past website interactions, what we're looking at is tracking our email subscribers on our website. So if they're signed up to receive emails from us, we can then see what pages they're viewing on the website and trigger campaigns off the back of that. Use it for segmentation. Next up, we've got past email interactions. So not just on your website, but with your emails. What have they been opening on previously? What have they been clicking on previously? It's going to give you a real idea of their current interests. And certainly, if you look at this in the recent past, you'll be able to see what they're telling you right now is what they want. Next up, we've got past purchases or donations if you're a charity, and past interactions with products or services. So what have they done with you previously? Where have they put their money down? Where have they converted with you? Because that's telling you what they've needed and what they've been motivated enough to make that commitment to. So using all of these pieces of data, we're going to give you a few scenarios in a minute that show you how you can use it across multiple different elements of your marketing strategy. And the first of those scenarios is that browse behavior data, that on-website behavior. What pages are they looking at? What categories are they looking at? What products? Are they going to your FAQ page? If you're B2B, are they starting to fill in a form but finishing filling in that form? So this gives you a wealth of information about what these people are interested in right now. So that's valuable data. So in terms of using it and what you can do, you've got to be thinking about all of those channels. So Kaya, what can we do from a Google Ads perspective with that data of what people are doing on our website? We've got them kind of identified in our email list in one sense, but I guess in terms of potential other tracking, you can, even with that anonymized data, potentially do something. So what can we do here?
Absolutely. Well, there is plenty we can do, Kate, is the good news. We'll still, of course, be able to use and target Google Ads powered by Google Chrome's first-party cookies. And there's, of course, the privacy sandbox that I really recommend anyone listening to this webinar goes and has a look into if they haven't already. But what we can do with this browse behavior data is use Google Ads Insights for email campaigns and SEO on-page improvements as well. As we were saying, it's about the cyclical nature of all of this information. We can use insights data around a specific keyword and its audience to trace that behavior back. We can walk our way back up the funnel and see what questions they were asking in the first place. And I mean, there is really no limit to what you can then do with that information. If you are understanding the questions that were asked to lead a person to convert on your site, you've got access to extremely valuable data there. We can think about email. We can think about useful content on the website. How can you be answering FAQs before they've even become FAQs? So this can then be turned into blog content or even full campaign ideas that, of course, then weave in a whole email strategy. We can segment that data and use the email testing for subject lines, calls to actions, to then link that back to paid data. What calls to actions are resonating with the audience that you've got in your email, with the sort of highly engaged audience within your email? Are those same calls to actions working with your paid advertising? There are so many sort of ways that you can draw insights from that data. And I think there are rabbit holes you can fall down, of course. A very important part of this whole testing phase is that it needs to be smart. You know, you've got to set limits on yourself because you can test yourself into oblivion. But actually, there are ways here that you can really think about the data that we've got from our Google Ads Insights. What's performing well? Are you seeing particular success in certain Performance Max campaigns, for example? There's a lot of changes happening in Google Ads. It's constantly getting smarter. The AI that's being used there is, of course, extremely advanced. So a lot of peripheral information can be generated and fed back in to that content strategy. And then that opens the door to then think about the relationship between your website content and your email content and how that can inform across the campaign. Which then leads us to the second element of personalized content within the browser behavior data realm. And that is that browser behavior data collected from website visits can be used to help you create more relevant content based on that conversion and traffic data. So again, what are people asking to lead them to make a purchase with you? So we can create more relevant content based on what's popular, what's driving conversions, but also understanding those demographics and creating website content accordingly, because not everything is relevant for everyone. So a few things to consider here. What does your user journey look like? Could educational content help users during that consideration phase? At what point in that funnel and that user journey are you receiving people to your website? And how can you ease them through the different stages of the learning that's necessary for the product, service, experience, whatever it may be that you are using your website to promote and sell? And what content is driving conversions? You know, I think there's a lot of value to be drawn from the different methods that we employ, whether it be SEO, PPC, email. There's all sorts of insights that we can gain. But of course, at the end of the day, we need to know what is driving conversions and how much data can we gain to understand the different touch points that client's had with you along their journey through that consideration phase while they've been comparing you with your competitors. What different bits of content have they interacted with and what has led them to that conversion? Are you utilizing abandoned basket prompts? If someone's coming to your site and you can see, you know, the journey that they've taken, at what point are they stopping? At what point are they leaving the site? Where are you seeing that they're coming to a stumbling block? What is it that's stopping them converting there and then? There are multiple ways to think about this. I mean, again, this is something that we'll explore in more depth further down this presentation, but is there something in your user journey that is stopping it from being as easy as it possibly could be and as smooth of a transition? What problems are your users facing? So that's extremely related to the abandoned basket prompts. What bumps are they coming to where the cost benefit of them staying on the website and getting through it outweighs actually, you know, sticking with it? What problems are they facing in the first place? Why have they even come to your site? Again, back to the questions. What is it that you're selling? We always talk about solving problems and presenting the benefits and problem solving nature of whatever it is that you're selling. How can you speak to that and to those problems for your consumers, rather than just speaking about the product or service? And are you using the data to create segments for targeting ads, lookalike audiences? We're going to talk about audience expansion. There are all sorts of things from a Google Ads perspective that can definitely be utilized here to think about those initial questions and think about who are those people with those problems that your product or service is solving. We can understand our audience's needs through various data sources, historical data through Google Search Console. There are all sorts of options for us to go down as marketers, but it's just about getting that research phase and then using that to inform your personalized content. So that leads us to, of course, the question of what is relevant. So we've got a lot of information about where we can find out what's relevant for people, but actually there's a whole other side to this, which is that there is a lot of data that, and a lot of, again, rabbit holes that you could fall down that actually result in irrelevant content for people. Not everything is relevant for everyone. So we can use browser behavior data to reduce irrelevant content. If someone is taking their time with a considered purchase, they're engaging with the educational content on your site. They're engaging with all of those details about the problems that your product or service is solving. They're taking their time with it. The content that they're served post-purchase through emails and ads should differ from what they saw during that consideration phase. So if someone is making an extremely, well-researched purchase for something that, a kettle, for example, if you're a department store, what are you then going to lead them on to following that purchase? Audience search and web page engagement data, as well as historic Google search data, as mentioned, can inform what to link to in your emails, because that strategy needs to change as the person goes along their journey. It's a constantly moving thing. We need to be acting in response to what our consumers are doing. It's a very iterative process. And once your emails are optimized, you need to think about linking to them and optimizing those landing pages in accordance with the stage of the customer journey that they're at, particularly with these considered purchases. We really need to be thinking about what would you as a consumer then want to engage with, and what is going to seem relevant and well thought out by that brand as well, from that perspective. So we're talking a lot about audiences here, and what we want to do, and another element of the benefits of the browser behavior data, is that we can use it to widen our reach, develop our personas. At the core of all the decisions that we make in digital marketing is, how well do you know your audience? Who are they? Who are you speaking to? What problems are you solving? How do you know that they've got these problems? So browse behavior data collected from website visits can be used for increasing subscribers. We want to drive more traffic to the site to increase the number of subscribers to your newsletter. That's a great benefit of SEO. A brilliantly optimized website that's coming up for the right search queries in Google will mean that we've got a more relevant target audience on site that may be more likely to then sign up to our newsletter. Again, back to that iterative process. We've got audience expansion. So using automated audience expansion widens your reach without the need for first-party data as a starting point. And from that, you can create a much bigger campaign. So this is actually a point that I will dwell on for a moment, because especially with oncoming changes that we mentioned at the beginning of this session, audience expansion is something to keep an eye on as a feature within Google Ads, because a consequence of cookies crumbling, as it were, are that audiences might become smaller. You might have a list of 500 users, people in your audience, that's going to turn into 100. So what we're going to be seeing more and more, we suspect, is that audience expansion is going to be used to look at the people that you've got data on, and it can say to a large degree of certainty, who can we find that looks almost the same. We can have more, we can use Google's data and its infrastructure that is being worked on so hard at the moment to help us rebuild those lists. And we foresee that there's going to be a lot of movement on this in the near future, because this feature is going to only become more valuable and more useful. We've already seen with Facebook's lookalike audiences, you can say you want a certain percentage of an audience, you want to expand it by 1%. The more percentage there is, the more likely there may be to be wastage. But Google is soon going to be quite likely to be going in a similar direction as Facebook. So we can then, through testing and measurement, find the sweet spot for where you can really maximize that efficiency between, yes, I want to expand my audience by 1% of gaining access to an audience that is going to be, in Google's eyes, as likely to convert as those that you have on your existing list. So I would really want to dwell on the point of audience expansion, that it's going to be replacing what was before it. So it's going to be a really important feature that we are, as marketers, hopefully going to be able to have more control over, more input in. So definitely watch this space there. And it's a brilliant benefit of the data that we, again, have access to. And then that leads us to optimized targeting. So based on the data you want to provide, automation will build in real-time personas of people that are likely to convert. We've got customer match lists, not to be confused with audience expansion. So that's Google finding people that are likely to convert based on your first-party data. And of course, developments in AI. So they're constantly happening. They're there. We're talking about them all the time. Custom segments and signals, and we're constantly seeing growth in this area and growth in the ways that we as marketers can be utilizing them. So all of this, again, is coming back to that question of how well do we know our audience? What do they want and what do they need?
And the better that we know them, the better we can serve up those wants and needs. And we're moving really from that one size fits all, trying to send and deliver the same content to everyone, through to segmentation, where we're creating groups of similar people within our audience. That's great. But we can then go to that next level as well, where we have that individualization, that personalization down to a one-to-one level, which through email is a great way to do it. I know with a lot of the channels, that segmentation part is the best way to get that personalization in. We're very lucky in email that we can go that one step further and literally have individualized product recommendations, content recommendations, content that fits to that individual person that is served up within the emails. And all of this, whether it's segmentation or that individualization and personalization, leads to being able to deliver to our audience relevant content or offers, really making them feel like we remember them. How many times have you bought something from a store, the next day they've sent you an email and said, oh, you got 20% off, and then there's a picture of that product that you've just bought in store the previous day? The more we can connect this data together and remember them, whether it's offline to online or connecting those online channels together, it's going to help them feel remembered, listened to, and understood. Again, coming back to that point of, if you are getting permission to collect and store that data under GDPR and the PECA regulations in the UK, use it to help them. And one of the ways you can do that is let them feel listened to and understood, and to be in control of what's happening. Again, that permission with data, the whole reason that GDPR came in 2018 was to give people more control over how their data was being used. So again, just really pushing that point that if they've given you permission, you're doing them a disservice if you don't use it. And of course, we've got two sides to this data. We've got everything that Kaya has been talking about in terms of your content, understanding what is resonating with different types of people within your audience. What are those questions that they're asking? Learning from that behavior. But the other side that we can learn from and connect all of this together is around what we call the data pyramid. And this is about really understanding your audience and understanding those different pieces of data that build up the pyramid. So let me talk you through how that looks. So at the very bottom of the pyramid, we have got your known data. So this is information that your subscribers, in this case, have given you when they have come through and signed up for your email marketing. So we start to know what their name is. We might know key interests that they have, depending on what you ask them. And this is either going to be demographic information, so about them as a person, or it's going to be firmographic. So it might be about their business, depending on what your business is offering them. Now, this data is great. You can collect it on sign-up forms. You can collect it through preference centers or surveys, information that people are directly giving you. However, little warning on this one. Today, that's brilliant data. Tomorrow, maybe not so much. So let's think about how that data might change. Interests change. What you need in your life changes. What you think you need changes. You may not even know you need it. So if you're saying you have an interest in a specific area, maybe you just don't know enough about the other areas that your business is offering or the other categories to say, yes, I'm interested in that. So collect that data, use it as a baseline, but then what we want to do is build up our data as we go up the pyramid and give you more recent, relevant information to layer on here. So the next two sections that as we go up are cultural and contextual data. Now with these are external pieces of information that you can bring to layer onto your strategy, the content you're creating, how you're talking to people within that content, tone of voice, the types of wording that you use, the types of offers that you use, the imagery that you pull in, whether it's ads that you're running or whether it's your emails, this external information comes into play. So cultural data is about that knowledge of something to do with the recipient, whether it's where they live and different cultural differences between where they live, religion, politics, whatever it is for your businesses, it's those kind of wider cultural differences that you would see and how you then deal with those. That could even come down to different payment methods in different countries, different languages for different countries that you may deal with within your subscriber audience. So that external knowledge we can layer on, whereas known data is solid data in your database that they've given you and filled in that data field. Contextual data is kind of somewhere in between almost. Now, you need a third-party piece of software in order to give you this information. So something like Movable Ink or Kick Dynamic, add on real-time tracking. So what this allows you to do is at the moment of open of your emails, you can change the content depending on what device someone's opening on, where they are in the country at that moment in time, what the weather is, what the time of day is, all of these fantastic pieces of kind of third-party data that we're bringing in based on tracking for, in this case, opening emails at different times in different places. Now, quite an advanced strategy, quite an advanced piece of data. You'll need that extra system to bring in that type of insight. But if you're ready for that and you wanted to go to the next level, it's a great place to go. Now, back into what you've got and what we're talking about within this section as we go up the pyramid to the next section now is your behavioral data. So as we've mentioned, this is everything that's happening in terms of email for your subscribers on site. And of course, Kaya has suggested lots of different ways you can use that anonymized data as well for that retargeting and creating segments. But here it would be based on who's a subscriber. This is what they've then done on your website. But it is also those email analytics that I mentioned earlier. So what are the topics they're opening and clicking on? You can use that for segmentation to say, give me everybody who has shown an interest either by visiting these web pages or interacting with these pieces of email content that have gone out, clicking on these articles. And then I'm going to put them into a segment and send them out specific content or offers or information based on that interest. They may not have gone through to purchase yet, but they're showing those signs of being a warm lead, so to speak, and of being ready to potentially take that next step. And that next step is the top of our pyramid. So this is your conversion data. So for most of you, if you're B2C, this is going to be your purchase data. So what have they bought from you before? How often have they bought from you? How much money have they spent with you? What are those individual products or services that they've bought from you? All of that information, and I'm sure you've got a wealth of it in your e-commerce platforms, all comes into play with what they've done and what they've put their money down against previously. Now, with all of this data, the final stage to bring it all together is potentially to mix pieces of these data sections, put them into segments, have a look at which of those pieces of data that you're collecting in each area could be used for personal one-to-one segmentation or personalization. Now, you can do that through yourself as a marketer. Perhaps you've got a data team to do it. Or, of course, now we've got a lot more artificial intelligence available to help us work through that data and understand what's going to be the best to target our audience with and connect the right content in from all of that other learning that we've been doing. So bringing all of this data together, this is information that you're going to kind of be able to firmly get. And of course, you've then got that softer qualitative data, more like NPS scores or customer reviews, where you're taking the wording social media. So if you go onto there and have a look at the tone and the sentiment that's happening on social media and pull that information into how you can improve your campaigns across the board, bringing all of this data together is really going to solidify getting you to that much more targeted place with the content that you're sending out. So as Kai mentioned earlier, the first thing you've got to think about is, looking at all of those different data sets, and definitely prioritize your known data, your behavioral data, and your purchase data, because you should quite easily within your business, hopefully, be able to go and find out what those different fields of data that you're collecting is. Have a look at those. What can you see within? What is that data that you're pulling in? What are the characteristics that then you can pull from those pieces of data that show similarities between your audience, that show differences between your audience? So, a very basic one is hasn't purchased before and hasn't viewed these pages on the website versus has purchased before and has viewed these pages on the website. There's a different journey that you want to take people on. And if we link it back to the section that we're in around browse behavior, use that to see what's of interest now. If they bought a month ago and they're now coming back onto the website and searching a different product and looking at something different, help them with that. That these people are likely to make a purchase because they have before. Whereas if somebody hasn't made a purchase and is browsing a specific product or category, they might need a bit more help and support. Maybe they need to be reassured that paying online on your website is secure and safe. Maybe they need some information about postage and delivery because they haven't experienced that before. Someone who's purchased has. It's a little reminder for them maybe, but not as much of that content to support in those areas because they don't need it. And this is the key thing, that by identifying those similarities and differences, we can identify what those different needs are for that audience. And again, linking to what we know works through paid ads or works as the content on our websites to then say, okay, so in order to cater for this similarity or difference, we've got these pieces of information that we know work, and we can pull them together to give us a head start on those email campaigns. Now, this is the core thing as well. I'm here to talk from an email side. Kaya is here to talk from a PPC and a CRO and social media and all of those other channels. But the reason that we're here together today is because those customers that we have, those prospects, don't care if we work for email side of the business or the social side of the business or wherever it is. They're interested in that combined journey. So what we now need to do is understand the connection between those different channels. So if somebody has come onto the website and signed up and they've come on through a PPC campaign, track that data back, understand what was that term that they came in or the specific ads that they came through. And as you go into your welcome email series, use that information. If they are browsing certain pages on your website and they've given you permission to email them through email, to message them through email and through SMS, for example. Let's combine a strategy that supports the customer service element with SMS, because different channels have different uses, and then pushes them to a conversion with email. And that's really, really important, because we've got to understand the channels that they are most likely to engage in and the different types of customers that engage with us in those different ways, because then we can start to target that content and have that much more targeted, relevant, helpful conversation at the time that they are in with your business. So bringing all of this together, it really is about sending the right message to the right person, and we can use our data to identify that, and particularly browse behavior is really, really important to that, linking it with email behavior as well, and those other areas of the pyramid. But one other place that you can use this to expand that messaging and make sure you're hitting those messages at the right time is to think about that customer life cycle, the funnel that they would go through with your business. And this is where certainly you can think about those different channels and where they sit and where they have the best use within that stage of the life cycle. Because every channel that we're dealing with has its own massive benefits. You know, I can sit here and sing the benefits of email, of course, but social media is fantastic for that more conversational that you can't really do in email, or bringing in those new audiences that are similar to your audiences and using it in that way. So just that kind of basic example there. But whether they're at the acquisition stage, they don't know about you yet, and you're using all of those fantastic channels to pull in new people that might be relevant to your product or service, through obviously at that stage into an email sign up, and then allowing us to use those channels to nurture them, to help them go through a mindset of, I've just found out about your business, all the way through to, I want to buy from you. I need to be part of what you're offering. So that consideration purchase is really important, and we need to be backing up those messages across the different channels. Then into purchasing experience, and here it's really about not just confirming the purchase, but making that experience as smooth and enjoyable and helpful as possible. Really important, because that's going to help to drive that next stage of loyalty, advocacy, and retention, and inspire them to come back again if they've had a great first experience. Second experience, we want to keep that going. And then win back. Inevitably, there will be subscribers who stop opening or clicking on your emails. Is there a different channel that we could perhaps target them through? There will be customers that stop purchasing. How can we reinvigorate them and come back to our business? So understanding how those different pieces of data fit together is really important to target the right message to the right person at the right time. And if we think about that behavioral data, that on-site data in particular, we're really bringing that into the consideration stage and the loyalty, advocacy, and retention stage. So understanding, have they bought from us before or not? Okay, brilliant. What are they looking at? So the example that I gave you just a few minutes ago. So that's how it connects in here.